free energy now.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sterling Allen. You can join us online at freeenergynow.net, where you can find a list of past guests, download those interviews, and read the stories associated with those shows. We're joined today, August 10th, 2013, by Geoffrey S. Miller of Energybat Labs, based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. Since the age of 10, Geoffrey has been in a laboratory setting of one kind or another, which has continued to grow both in the equipment available as well as in the number of interesting projects being experimented on, some of which look promising to make it to market not too long from now. If you go to his website, energybat.com, you will see that presently they list 20 projects, including cold electricity, crystal batteries, centrifugal energy amplification, Tesla experiments, including a Tesla turbine, magnetic rail, Bedini energizer, Energybat alternator, Newman magnet motor, Searle motor, Holes fusion, Joule ringer, Energybat rotating solenoid motor, and the one that caught my first attention was the Energybat Labs household 10 kilowatt generator, which from what I can tell could be another instance of the self-looped motor generator class of device we've been tracking for about a year now. This was a pre-recorded interview, so after a brief segment it starts a bit abruptly, so excuse that, and here we go.
Hello?
Yeah, thanks for letting me call you back.
No problem.
What was that other place you said besides the Franklin Institute that you hung out with in the Philly area when you were growing up?
It was the Philadelphia Free Library, and then there's the Philadelphia Natural History Museum. I mean, if you go to those three things, and Library of Congress, basically, pretty much the real books are probably still there, but nobody really investigates books. You know, they're all onto iPods and iPads and a million other, things. So I grew up there, used everything, took classes. They shut down the library that was up there. 99% of most people didn't even know that the Franklin Institute had 3 floors of the library. Tesla did a lecture there. At the end of the day, I got a lot of the books out of there. And so that what I did is I just have always wanted to make what's known as a prime mover. You know, I see all this stuff that's on all these websites. I've followed these websites since then, basically 95, 98, when the internet, basically was put up. And at the end of the day, what has to be done is that you need to work backwards. You need to work off of, basically a 10K house unit type of generator that's available to everything. And I've always looked at the very simple end of things, and I go ahead and then I build prime movers, or I test other people's ideas out, whether or not they can be hooked up in a prime mover, configuration. And then, 2, you need to look at it from the client's point of view of it being interfaced into their house, And then 3, you've got to be able to look at it from, does it make any noise? Does it create anything that EPA or anything like that would freak over? And most people don't look at things like that. They just, they jump in, they learn a little bit, and, then they say all of a sudden they have something. Because I'm sure that within your, travels, you still have not seen an actual unit that really, is hooked up to a house and runs itself, right?
No.
Yeah. And basically the one main reason for that is the fact that I think a lot of people don't really understand electricity, And one of the things that I've always had a dream of, and I've worked on it, and I'm very, very close to it, is, how you have a toaster and you put a piece you put a bread in there and heats up all the wires. Why don't we put a bread in there and you make the wires all frosty and you freeze the bread? That's the option of electricity. And that's a side that nobody has even begun to look at. And so what I do is I've dedicated basically my life and everything to research of basically that and a few other things. And so what I do is I build everything, and I have the talent to be able to go ahead and build it. I just have been born that way, and I've been able to, go ahead and look at things a little bit differently than the average person. And I've never really brought this to anybody's attention or anything because basically I just have wanted to be in the background right now. And it's just been recently that I feel, especially after the whole Eric Dollars thing, I mean, there was a lot of people looking forward to seeing what he could do and everything. And, that's a whole gigantic, it's almost like the world of bizarre going on there.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but, he had lab donated to him, had equipment donated to him, had, car donated to him, money donated to him, and then he just, runs a ship over to, I guess, Aaron's website, and, then he can just go ahead and publish books, which is fine. He's more of a theorist than anything else, and his character, though, I mean, I saw your, I think that your last post on Scarecrow Show. That was interesting. But getting back to me a little bit, I've done a million things. I've built race cars. I've worked for I've done forge work at the highest level in the world. And like I said, I just build everything. So that being said, I built this little website about 6 months ago, and I threw it together pretty much in a night, 6-7 hours and everything, and I haven't gotten back to it. And basically, when I saw this whole Eric Dollard thing running around, I almost felt sorry for a lot of the people that threw in their money and thought that they were going to get something out of it. I at least wanted to post it. There's some other options out there, and I'm prepared to eventually show them all. I just need the time to be able to put up the videos, the correct videos, everything, because that only shows about 20 things. I have basically probably over at least 100 projects that I'm going to be putting up there. And then at the end of the day, what I want to do is put a unit into somebody's house and just, I'm test it, I'm run it, have electricity flow through their home, and that's about pretty much it.
I'm raising my hand.
What gets me is that, to me, it's because I've lived with all this. I've run my own lab and everything, my own electrical turbines and stuff like that, and to me it's just common sense now, but to everybody else it's not. And what one of the big things that's happened to me is did you read a letter that I posted on, I think, Aaron's energetic forum?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. The reason being is I put up a letter telling about myself and everything like that, and there's another website that goes along with this, and it's oh God, the name just got changed. Let me get it here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to bring all this stuff, and I still do. I want to give it out to the world in general. And when I show this one thing, it's going to basically make everything on every single form completely obsolescent. And people can go to Home Depot and build this type of device. Don't need any skills. The site is called mobileutilitytoolbox.com. And what I did is for the last, what it is I developed a toolbox that basically goes on and off your pickup trucks, any pickup trucks in the world. You release it from the vehicle, and all your tools pop up on it. And then from that, you get to do anything that you want. It has a microwave, it has all this stuff and everything. We were supposed to go in the past like year and a half, we were supposed to go into Home Depot. We put $2 million into the project, and that was supposed to bootstrap me with building the complete lab that I wanted to build. So what happened is the investors pulled out. We were supposed to make 14,000 units for Home Depot, 15 for Lowe's, and like 12,000 for Sears. And so for some reason, they decided to just not go ahead with it. So that left me basically destitute, lost everything. Cars, trucks, house, everything. So I'm basically living in my car and staying at somebody's place for in and out, showering at another place, shaving at my lab, so, and working at a $5 job right now in the mornings just to get gas money and, food here and there. So, that being said, when you go to that website, you'll see what we want to do in a huge way to bring in money. If we sold the 14,000 units just to Home Depot and everything, we'd be a $1.7 billion company. The cost of making the units would be almost about $600,000. And then the rest would be absolute 100% cash flow in the bank for me and or the investors. And so then what I was going to do is then
How much money do you need to pull that off?
Just basically $1 million. So everything's set to go. I make one phone call up to Canada to the biggest mold production company. And I have a finder's fee of basically $1 million to anybody who brings in the correct people to do it.
Now, I know of somebody who, I met him at the Tesla Tech conference 3 years ago. He's got an incubator organization sourcing extreme breakthrough technologies to try and bring them out and they've been trying to source these things, and they presently are sitting on several $1 million in an escrow fund waiting for a project. They've got the money, they don't have the project. And so I could put you in touch with him and, let him know that this project that you need the money for isn't an exotic project itself, but it would give you the funding you need to then finance in a big way some of these other projects you have going.
Yeah, the main project that I want to finance, which is the quickest for people to intellectually understand, is I think it's 6, 10, I forget what one's on there, but it's the turbine one, the water turbine system. It'll make all turbines completely obsolete in the world. And basically what it does is it's a pressurized type of tank. It has a specialized turbine inside of it. When you add the pressure to the turbine spins. At that point, you can put the generator on the outside of the tank. You can put the generator inside of the tank. But once it gets going, then it just goes. You take it up to the load level that you want by pressurizing the tank, and then that's it. All the day, and it spins and goes. And I worked 10 years on that project before I did what's known as the pull-out, which is the project with the toolbox. And so that is the one that basically you can go to Home Depot and build this. The minute that I show how to do it, every single person on the face of the globe will be able to go right out the door and go build this stuff and experiment with it and go ahead and hook it up to their streams, their waterfalls, you name it. Put on any type of load system to it, pressurize it, and it runs itself. And it's pretty cool. I'm staring at one right now that's 4 feet wide, sitting right outside the shop, covered up. So, that being said, that's something that people can understand. It doesn't get into electricity outside of just putting a generator on it and everything. And then there's several other ones. It's like I worked with Joe Newman. Most people don't even know that. I worked with Cyril. Oh, what a character that guy is. And like all the Newman devices I see on the internet in the last like 10, 12, 13 years, every single one of them is wrong. Not what Joe has, not how it's built, and everything like that. And I've got one sitting here that's 8 feet long. It's one of the ones I used to run the shop on. It's hooked up to a 10,000 watt generator. And so that all being said, the whole idea is that for investors, getting back to the pullout, that was supposed to be bootstrap my leg up. And the reason why I did the whole pullout is because when I wanted to get funded for the turbine system way back in the 80s and everything, the grant stuff, the write-ups, the science stuff, all that stuff, you really couldn't get it done. You couldn't get money for it. So then I said, okay, then I'm going to invent something that's basically cool. And I have 14 patents worldwide on it. Registered trademark, everything. I've gone to shows, I've been on TV, everything like that. And if you go to the websites and everything and cruise around for about 2 hours, you'll understand what I've done with it. And so it's ready to go. It's made by it would be made by the biggest blow molding company in the world. They would send it down to 12 distributorships, a blow molding company. You've seen, you see the slides and play parks and everything like that. It's that hard, rigid plastic is what it is. There are 4 types of plastic. There's injection molding, vacuum forming, rotational molding, and then blow molding. And it's the largest in the world, basically.
Okay.
And they make a lot of stuff for Mercedes and a whole bunch of stuff. And I spent a year and a half doing the engineering work from making it in the plastic mold in a program called SolidWorks. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I know SolidWorks.
Yeah. So I did a year and a half of all that engineering, put it in there, and then it's ready to go. And basically I just make a phone call, and $300,000 actually starts the ball rolling, because they just go ahead and they start making and cutting the molds, and then the molds are made out of aluminum, and basically I think there are 12 molds that make this whole thing. And then after that, then they want like $300,000, $400,000 on the visual check, and they want the remaining money when you sign off on it. And then they can have, in less than, basically about 2 weeks' time, they can have 14,000 units ready to go sitting on railroad cars in about 2 weeks' time. They make a unit every 2 minutes, and they would box it up, palletize it, everything like that within less than, I think, about 12 minutes, they said. And I've seen the plant and everything like that. So that was the whole point of making that and getting the finances to then go ahead and release the turbine things, because the turbines can be made out of metal, but I prefer to make them out of blow molded plastic. And then when I make them out of blow molded plastic, then the whole thing is just, you can ship them out the door, or to go get an off-the-shelf generator, hook it up to it. And that's one project. And then the other big thing is...
now the turbines, maybe I misunderstood you, but there needs to be some kind of a prime mover to drive that, whether it's a stream or river or wind. Do you have it in a configuration that once it starts up, it's self-powering?
Yes. That's the pressurized tank version. You can use this thing in 3 different modes. You can use it in an open mode where you can literally have basically water running through the turbine, and then just go ahead and have a generator off of that. Or you can actually have it in a tank and have it pressurized to assist you for more load, for if you want to get more load out of it, but you have a small stream. You don't have the head pressure that goes off of the stream, but you want to add some more power to it. Then you can have that tank, so you add a certain amount of pressure into the tank, and then after that, that gets it up even more speed, which then you can load it down with your generator, and then you can close, lock it into a quote. And I don't want to say I hate the word closed loop system, because when you say the word closed loop system, I mean nothing's like a closed-loop system, but in a weird way, the universe is in sort of a closed-loop system itself, so it's a definition. So I don't really like to use it. I pressurize a tank, and it makes it go, and it reuses itself, and that's...
Now, my question is, if you've got that capability, why would you even want to mess with the first two?
Mess with the what?
With the first two options of having it run completely from an internal, from some external water source or wind source, or as an assist.
Just for the fact that the amount of money that you just have to buy, like you would have to buy a tank, you have to make a not a specialized tank, but you just have to make a custom tank, and you have to make the turbine, and you have to make it with the generator inside and everything like that as a standalone unit. That would be probably the size, depending on how much speed you want to make it at. It would be pretty much the size of an air conditioning unit that's on the outside of a house. You could put it right there, But at the same time, I just wanted to let people know that if you show the principle with this turbine, then people in the woods in the beginning that may not have any money to go buy a tank like that with this thing, then they can just go ahead and start putting this thing right to use immediately. That was what I was thinking from the actual water end of it.
Yeah, I still go back to whenever you've got some kind of environmental interface, whether it's a stream or a river or ocean waves or wind, you have to build for extreme situations. You have to engineer for salt. You have to engineer for hurricanes. You have to engineer for floods. And it gets expensive. And if you've got a closed-loop system capability, that seems like you should focus on that and not even mess with any other interface.
Oh, yeah, but people would end up doing it anyway, only for the fact that, I show them how to do this thing, they'll just go do it.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by they can go buy the parts at Home Depot and put one of these things together.
Yeah.
That was all I was trying to say. People always want to get their fingers into things, and then they play with it for a little bit, and then they, most of the people on the internet are 99% curiosity seekers. But yes, no, my whole idea was to sit there and just get funded from the pullout, and then go ahead and take these things on a big scale. It's like, my shop and everything like that. There's only been one person that's ever been here in their life, and what's really weird is that I know a lot of key people around the country that most people don't even know. It's like this whole, like a lot of people about Tesla and everything. I've done all of Tesla's original works. I've built a lot of his original equipment and everything, and I've transmitted the power in the earth, everything like that. Lit light bulbs, run motors, and most people, they didn't. Nobody ever. What amazes me is that nobody's really ever built Tesla's original, system in Colorado. But then 99% of most people wouldn't even understand really how it works.
Yeah, well, that was fairly complicated.
Huh?
Wasn't it fairly complicated?
No, it's actually very simple. See, it would be simple if I showed you how to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, like Eric Dollard, he knows it intellectually, and he's done some little bit experiments in way back in the 80s, and then he disappears, and then all of a sudden somebody finds him and wakes up, like he woke up from the grave or something like that, And now everybody's going to be reading this 4-quadrant, this and this and that, and at the end of the day, that'll be nice reading. And I think by the time December comes rolling around and the books have all been bought and everything like that, people are going to wonder, like, okay, now, what do we do with all this? Because most people aren't gifted at building, and most people, it's very hard, so the only way they can really participate or understand is through reading some books or being able to, do a little bit of hands-on. A lot of people don't have the funding, everything. So I appreciate everybody that's doing stuff on the Internet. Anyway, what do you think of that whole thing?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate because you have a guy who's intellectually very gifted, has a very high IQ, but a very low EQ, emotional quotient, the ability to interact with human beings. He's in this huge victim mode, blaming everybody else on his problems, when in reality, he's his own worst enemy. And the reason things get sabotaged is not by others, but by himself. And then he blames everyone else and paints things in the worst possible light, not taking any responsibility for the role he played in the sabotage.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's a shame. You had 4 people that put together, got him a car, got him a lab, got him all the equipment he ever wanted, and got him some money, and basically brought his health back to, good standing, And then I think what happened is Eric Dollar is afraid to go ahead with what he says he can do. That's the real crux of the matter. As long as it's kept in the format of a book, then it's fine. As an engineer, I think he is good. I think he's worked with a lot of people. I think at the end of the day, when the books are all written, you're going to have a nice historical thing of radio. And then you'll have his theory to go along with everybody else's theory of how electricity works. But he does know his radio and everything. A lot of the stuff I know exactly what he's talking about, because I've studied it all and done it physically. I mean, it's sad for all the people who threw money. I can see why Texon was pissed off, and that David Whitaker and that David other guy, and I mean, they put all their heart and souls into it, and they thought that the guy was going to come up and build stuff. But the thing was, I also was talking to Peter Linneman. I've talked to him years and years ago, and then I re-talked to him, and I said, look, I'll be glad to do, a conference thing, because he was calling for people to get on his conference when they first started Bedini's conference. I said, I'd do it. And never heard from them, and they just sent like an email just saying, no, we're not interested at this time.
What I would say in response to that is, from my vantage point, there's not going to be just one solution. There are going to be many.
Oh, yes, there are.
When one comes out, that will open the floodgates for a bunch of others to get more credibility, get the funding and resources. It'll grease the skids for others to come along. Yes,
you're right about that. And the weird thing is that the oil industry, had they paid attention or would pay attention to the fact that if you get a free electricity running in your house, do you have any idea how fast your air conditioner, your washer, your dryer, it would create a whole brand new industry of like making millions and millions of air conditioners again. Because people will run them nonstop. People will run their lights nonstop. People will run everything that they can nonstop. You will have toys, child's toys, being built for the fact that, hey, guess what? We can just build the living hell out of here and put motors in these things that we've never been able to, because people won't, charge them, the charge time and this and that, because you have free power. That free power would sit there and run your house, and people would just indiscriminately just keep the lights on and everything like that. And it would be, everybody would be buying washers and dryers and everything like that, because they would be burning food stuff 10 times more in the way they are now, because now they have to watch their electric, bill every month. Whereas if free power goes along, then they're not going to watch it at all, but their products are going to burn out. And that would be, in a weird way, a benefit to mankind, because then it would put a whole bunch of people to work again. All of a sudden air conditioners start burning out. Washers burn out. We got to go out to work and make those up so we can go put them back in their houses again. But I like your website a lot, mainly because of one thing. You have variety, more than a variety of everything that there is, whereas a lot of these, a couple other ones, they're more just people want to rant and rave on the websites, and that's about it. And, a couple people go on there, they try and show some stuff, they get disgusted, and you never hear from them again.
So of the technologies that you're sitting on, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds to me like that turbine system that you're talking about is the most promising and would be the easiest to roll out?
Oh, you could do that. The other very easy one to roll out, too, is the Newman motor.
It seemed to me from the pictures I've seen in the Newman motors, that thing's a beast.
But he just made it big. He just got the money to make it big. Simple as that. He just wanted to show the pumping action. He wanted to show, it's just made big. It was handmade, obviously. That can be all downsized and everything like that. And see, that gets into the world of Bedini. Have you ever met John?
Yeah, a couple of times. I drove up there to meet with him and Peter Lindemann back in 2004, and I got his plans and permission to write up his Bedini Schoolgirl motor, and I put up those plans, spent 3 months playing around with that, never saw over Unity that I could say there's more energy coming into the system than what it's consuming. But they actually got mad at me. Him and both John and Peter got on my case because I made it too easy.
Yeah, I know that. I watched it and read all your stuff and everything. And it is very easy. And it's the key thing about this, and what a lot of people will learn or they will never understand, is it all has to do with the impedance match of the coil itself and the impedance of the battery. Because that's one of the reasons why John is always trying to tell you to use brand new batteries to start with and everything. But I've got just sitting here on the bench right now because I've been considering doing the whole thing with the Bedini stuff and making it simple for people, whereas a lot of people, it's been very problematic and everything. But that being said, I have like 9 of them sitting here right now, and
well, when you talk about doing this Bedini stuff and the Newman stuff, aren't there issues with intellectual property? Do you have permission to be putting out Newman stuff?
Oh, I worked with him for like a year and a half. I got a license from him. I also have a license from John Searle to make flying UFO discs. Boy, is that a story and a half. That's and the other thing that works and nobody knows how to make it work is this Smith. You know what I'm talking about?
Don Smith?
Don Smith, yes. Yeah. People don't understand that because they don't understand what Tesla did. That's the reason why they've got all kinds of problems and stuff with him. Because everybody wants to learn in 5 minutes. I mean, I've been doing this thing. My first lab I had together, I was 7 years old. And you're not going to learn this stuff in 5 minutes. I can teach you all this stuff now in pretty much very easy terms because I have the ability to do that, to just show you. Like, I mean, I could go ahead and I could put together a John Bedini Energizer. The worst thing ever came out of that thing was that bicycle thing where that whole big wheel, all that wheel is not a motor. And people don't know what the word Energizer is. All that is a switching thing for the transistor, a switch. If you don't want to use that, you can turn it into a solid state thing. As simple as that.
That's another thing. They got really mad at me when I when I stumbled onto the solid state mode with the wheel, when you get into certain resistances, it actually sets up a harmonic. You don't have to have any motion of the wheel, and it's actually vibrating electronically. And you can actually hear it audibly within a certain range where you can hear it go from a low to a high pitch. And they got mad at me because I discovered that, and they didn't want me talking about that.
Yeah, because, I talked to John 3 times, and when I posted as a test the same website that you're viewing, I put that up for, basically a day or two to see if anybody would even respond. Nobody responded, and I called John, and I said, oh, by the way, take a look at the website and everything like that. At that point, his phone didn't work for me. And I had talked to him for 3-4 times about, 4 or 5 hours at a pop,
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, the first time I called him, he was just going off on that Rick Frederick dude, because they just started splitting up like boyfriend, girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing that everybody forgets about Rick is the fact that before John ever, as John made all the information available basically since about 2000 when the internet got going for the average person, Rick comes along, starts making a little kit, another little kit, making a whole bunch of kits, making parts all available, puts together 2 gigantic conferences and everything, and gets things that actually run. A lawnmower, B, a couple motors, C, a boat, D, a car. He puts all that together, and John is still goofing around and making the SG, and then he goes ahead and gives the license agreement to Rick, and then all of a sudden they don't get along, and they part their ways, and now I just see the brand new fight is about to happen. Somebody's going to try and convince John to go after Rick. But the point is if it wasn't for Rick actually building kits and getting them out to the public, John wasn't doing that. John never made any kits. John's an unbelievable audio expert and everything like that. But, at the end of the day, the SG is a battery charger. And he turned it into battery chargers for $2,000 and $3,000. So at the end of the day, when you look at what value you're going to get for a battery charger of his type, unless you own a shop that you're using batteries, you need to charge a whole bunch of them day in, day out, But no, they don't want anybody to ever think that basically, you're smarter than they are. And that's what it really comes down to. And it's a shame, because I've always looked at it as one of the biggest drawbacks for people of free energy, quote, is just the people themselves.
Yeah.
Look at the gigantic mess that dollars created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, I saw that thing when you posted it and everything. But when you went to a shop and everything, did you actually see a shop?
Yeah. I was there for about a day. He gave us a full tour, showed us about 6 or 7 different demonstrations of his different things that he has going there, including the schoolgirl. And I focused on the schoolgirl because that was easy and something that we could get out there. And the way it was portrayed to me by Lindemann was that you've got one battery on the input charging 4 on the output. So you could, and what I implied from that was that you could take 1 from the output, put it on the input, and basically you've got a gain of 3 on the output. So you basically have an energy generator, and that's why I drove up there, because that's what I thought I was going to see and build. And so when I built it and it didn't do that, that was a big disappointment. And they said, oh, you're not doing it right, or you didn't understand us right, it's not supposed to do that.
Well, I'm sitting here right now, and it's funny you say 4. I have 6 batteries to charge. And one of the things that they don't, And I get the feeling they don't want people to actually know this. You can take that back battery, you can put it in the front, and you can rotate them all through, boom, boom, boom. You take the 1 battery, take the 6 battery, put it to run the Energizer, and then just keep it going around and around and around. Now here goes where the crux of the whole Bedini thing, in one way, can go down in the toilet if you look at it this way. It's the charge time versus the load. If you're going to use his batteries, that's why you need to set them up a certain way so that you can pull out. Let's say you're charging 8 of them or something like that, and then you have ninth one. You have one that's running the machine itself. So you have 8 of them sitting there. Let's say you use 4 of them, and you totally have those 4 running down, and you're using them for whatever load through an inverter, and you're just running, your house lamps or whatever you're using it for. Then what you have to do is then you have to let them rest, and then you rotate them a certain way, because it takes a certain amount of time to charge the batteries. That's one of the reasons why Rick and everybody went up to 30 coils so that they can get the energy being dumped in there. Now, the reason why they need 30 coils is it's very simple. They have to sit there, and you have your little tiny magnets that have barely, an inch circumference going around there. You only have a certain amount of magnetic flux that goes into that coil. Well, that being said, that's one of the reasons one of the projects I have also is a generator, coil generator, that runs itself. And the reason being is because my coils, how you have, most people wind their coils on a non-magnetic bobbin, like they don't make it out of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mine are made out of metal. And mine sit here and do something that most people have never even thought of. And because what you want is what I would term my motor, I would term it as a magnetic pump. What you want to do, and it works on the hydrostatic principle, just like you have hydraulics. And what you want to be able to do is you want to have a tank that holds the hydraulic, which would be magnetic flux. And in that tank, you're able to push into the wire as much as you want. You want it under a certain pressure, and that pressure is a certain voltage, and then you want the volume of that pressure to come flowing into the wires, and that's your amps. And once you have the volume coming into the wires, then you've got real power. And that's one of the projects I have up there too. See, what I haven't had time to do yet is to write up an explanation for each one of the projects and what the project actually does, and then pull the videos that I have of all these projects and put them up there in sequential order and everything like that. But anyway, getting back to Bedini's thing, my magnetic pump one, that has a huge surface area of magnetic flux that's able to go. All these motors, when you look at any motor on the internet or anything like that, they're dealing with little tiny magnets with little tiny, flux lines. You're not going to get anything like that outside of running it around a million billion times. So John's wheel has to go around a lot of times to make a certain amount and speed up the battery charging. That's one of the reasons why. Were you there when he had the wall of lights, or he hadn't built that yet?
Don't remember a wall of lights.
Yeah, that's the one where he has the wall of lights, and he has those gigantic cell tower batteries.
I guess saw that.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah. I saw the cell tower battery.
Okay. Then you went there, 2004 or 5?
2004.
Okay, then he may have not completed it or built it, because what he did is he built that 10-coiler, and then he had the wall of lights there lighting up 2,000 watts of light bulbs off the cell tower batteries, and he was charging up the cell tower batteries. But what he found out was that after he runs this wall of lights and everything, then you go ahead and then you have to charge those batteries up. But those batteries might take like 3, 4, 5 days to charge up. Because if you're sucking the power out of one half of them, then the other half has to charge. Then you have to switch the batteries back and forth. And one of the things that even John hasn't, well, I know he probably knows it or he hasn't told anybody about it, is whether or not you make the batteries so that you can oscillate the batteries. And you make the batteries oscillate. If you make the batteries oscillate, where when you're charging it and you're dumping it into one battery and then you're dumping it in another, you're ringing the batteries back and forth. And where the power comes from, where the extra power comes from your magnets. And as long as you keep having those magnets rotate and dump in there, that's giving you fuel. And as long as you go ahead and don't pull the power off of your charging battery too quickly, you can have a system. And he's in the process of going ahead and doing that, because he's going to be using a solar cell on his house, and he's going to be using at nighttime his SG unit so that he can charge, so he can have continuous power throughout. But there's better ways to do it, and he's developed his way, and I'm not going to knock him for it, but it's hard to play with. And then the other big thing about his thing is the damn transistors. I mean, you fart and those things blow apart. And there goes another $5 down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
But did you ever meet Cyril?
Not in person. I've interviewed him.
Yeah. What do you think of him?
I like him. He certainly is eccentric.
Yeah. He's a character, believe me. And I met him the first day that he arrived in the United States, upstate New York, Rochester. And I had written him before. Nobody knew where he was. I knew he was in England and everything. And then he came over. He met with a guy named John Thomas, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, he's flown all these crafts. Well, to make a short story short, I said, okay, I'll come up and meet you and everything like that. We'll build the equipment. And he said, oh, that's great. So I go ahead and I say, give me a list of what you wanted back in 1945, the things that you worked on to make that first magnetic, roller work. And he said, no problem. So he got me a list. I got all the chemicals, I got all the equipment, I got everything ready for him to go. And then, when we go up there and everything, I made models of everything, and then I was supposed to end up doing a talk with him out in Colorado Springs. I think this is 96, 94, something like that. And he goes, well, you got to show it running and everything. And I said, well, I have all the equipment. You just tell me what you did back in 1945. Then things got sketchy. And I did this purposely because I innately knew that he hadn't done it. And so he started saying, well, you don't have the proper this and that. I said, I have exactly what you said to get. I have your letter saying to get all this stuff. Here's all the stuff. He saw it. He physically saw a film of it and everything like that. And what had happened is John Thomas, this guy, he meets him, and John Thomas ends up being his promoter. Mm-hmm. At that point, it was a riot. But what's really a riot, more so than anything else, is you do know that they have a film of him, right?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, some of the equipment that's in that film has been made by me.
Okay.
I got a kick out of that one. Mm-hmm. And some of his websites, he's had some of the stuff up there. I just get a kick out of it. And let me see, if I walk around here right now, I can stare at the Cyril equipment right now. I'm looking at it. Mm-hmm. So that being said, and I'm only touching on some highlights of of what I'm telling you, mm-hmm. And it's like Joe Newman and everything. Did you ever meet him?
Nope. I don't know that I'd want
Yeah.
to meet him. I feel like we would be like cats and dogs.
No, he's really a nice guy. The big thing about it is that he just likes you to be able to talk, like intelligently. That's his biggest thing. And everybody tears him apart and everything like that. And basically what he's built is he's built a almost identical. And this is where it becomes very strange. Who came out first with, and I believe that Joe Newman has versus Bedini. Bedini's window motor, right?
I'm familiar with it.
You are or you aren't?
I am. I wouldn't be able to drop a schematic of it, but I've done coverage on it.
Okay. That motor is identical to Newman's motor, except for what Bedini did, is that Bedini used a triggering mechanism with a transistor, whereas the commutator that Joe uses, he uses completely different. And the power that Joe gets versus what Bedini gets is completely different. And what's really funny is that after Bedini wrote a book through Bearden, he went ahead and changed and re-edited the book to put in the window motor because people were into the window motor because Rick started introducing that to people. And so when that got introduced and everything, John goes ahead and all of a sudden there's notes from 1971 that, he created this window motor and everything like that. Well, what's really funny is that I got John Bedini's books back in like 1982, 83, and Joe Newman's book came out in 84 and everything. And so when you look at the two, you can almost say, well, which came first? Look like the chicken and the egg, because they're both identical. The only difference is the one is being used with a transistor, so it can't push any of the power, quote the back EMF or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the one that Joe Newman can do is it can dump the power. I mean, the capacitors that I use right here are the size of a small refrigerator, and there are 4 of them for 4 coils. So then what happens is, because if you don't use the capacitors on this commutator, the minute that the back EMF hits the commutator points, it'll blow the commutator to pieces. And what was cool was when I was at Joe's place, he used to sit there, and we just did this for fun, get a 45-gallon of water, and 45-gallon tank with water. And he would put a car battery in there. And then what you do is you hooked up the 2 leads to his motor, and then you turned his motor on, and at the right point he would dump all the power into the battery, and it would blow, sound like a bomb going off. Water would blow up and everything. And it was pretty cool. It just shows you how much power was going back there. So then basically you pump that into the capacitors, and then that goes 1/2 of the cycle of Newman's motor. So then the other half is being powered, and it just rotates around, and it gets dumped in there, and it feeds back in there. So then you can use like basically a 9-volt battery to run it, and then it runs and runs and runs, and it builds up this power into the capacitors, and then you go ahead and it keeps the shaft rotating under load. And if you want the voltage for more and more load and everything, you just add a couple more 9-volt batteries. And is it perpetual? No. 9-volt batteries will eventually run down in like a year, but who cares? Got like maybe 10 9-volt batteries. It runs the unit at 1,000 RPMs, which then runs the generator at 4,000 RPMs. That's basically how the unit works, but it's this commutator that nobody's gotten right. That's why when you look at all these Newman motors, they're just little motors, but it's not the Newman ones. But you got to make it a certain size, because power comes from torque, and if you want the torque, you got to have it a certain size. That's one of the reasons why the pressure a gasoline motor, is a certain size, and it gets the highest amount of torque out of a motor for being the smallest physical size, and that's why we still haven't gotten a gasoline motor. But he was a character. He was funny and everything like that. So when I went down there and showed him that I built his stuff and everything, then I went ahead and he said, "Hey, you're the only one in the world that's built the stuff identically to me and everything." He says, here's a license. We got the license and everything. It's a shame. What gets me is that nobody ever wanted to work, but I think it's more of a personality thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was a funny character. And then I've met a whole bunch of other these characters. They're all characters. What's the definition of radiant electricity? I mean, you hear this all the time about, Tesla, radiant electricity and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person who really understands how Tesla did it from a theory point of view is Eric Gollash. He's right on what he says about that. Because I've produced I've done Eric's experiments way back in 88 when he released the Borderland tapes. And what gets me is why Eric has never done anything since then. I guess he just wasn't interested. I just wanted to, slowly bring this out, and at this point, I want to be able to just, sort of start getting this stuff out there. I've had it a long time, and it's just getting time right now because I'm at the stage where I'm building all the equipment to interface a couple of these things. Because some of this stuff can be pushed back and forth, meaning that I can use some of the Newman technology with some of the ideas that I have, with some of the ideas that Tesla had. And that's like putting sort of building Lego blocks. A certain Lego block does something, another Lego block does something else, and you put two of them together, and you get a third thing out of it. Mm-hmm. And the only way you'd be able to understand that is if you understand each one of the technologies by themselves. What happened to the one travel? I think you went to South Africa, I think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that thing, what happened was after 3 months, the batteries were hammered and they wouldn't take charge anymore. And so you're looking at having to replace 4 batteries every, couple months. And that makes it so it's not cost effective because of the cost of the batteries. That may have been an excuse, but that's the last I heard from them, and that was about 6 months after I went down there. 4 to 6 months, they came out with that explanation of the results of their alpha testing that they did.
What's the, because I haven't followed or anything, I've heard of it, what's the ECAT thing do?
The ECAT is a LENR process that uses nickel and hydrogen under pressure and some heat and some kind of a catalytic proprietary catalyst and maybe some RF are involved to foment a nuclear reaction from what the level of power that comes out of it is far in excess of anything chemical you might expect. And so you get a lot of heat after you get it into the reaction zone, and takes very little energy to keep it running while you're getting a whole lot of heat out, which you can then pull off through a heat exchanger and then run a turbine or whatever.
Yeah. You run that thing right into mine.
Yep.
If you wanted to. The beauty of this turbine is it's not just water. You can put hydraulic, oil in there. You can put...
Couldn't you use a battery system to get this thing started, like in a starter motor of a car, and then once it's up to speed, use the energy from the machine in self-loop mode to recharge the battery?
Yeah, you can do it that way. I mean, I'm staring right now at a tank that I built, and what the tank is it's a cube plexiglass tank, and it's got 4 inputs to it. And it's got a pump. And what you do is exactly what you just said, and this is a demo tank to demonstrate the principle. And so what happens is the water is sitting in the tank. I press a button on the battery and, close the switch, and that circulates the tank water, and it goes through the turbine, or in this case, it just goes through a water jet thing. And then what happens is it's spraying into the tank, and you pressurize the tank, and then you shut off the motor, you shut off the pump, and then you open up a valve, and then that sucks it in through the valve, and then goes through there, and then continues to go ahead and shoot the water out under the pressure itself. And then if you want to put more pressure in, then the speed of the actual jet starts flying out of there, and you just keep putting more and more pressure into it, and the faster and faster it goes through there. And what you do is you put that into a special turbine, and then the turbine itself amplifies the pressure under centrifugal load. And then when you do that, there's several ways you can take the power off, and the power is taken off of either direct generator with a belt or a chain, or you go ahead and if that were to ever go down, let's say, you cannot use that method. You can actually use, I can put 42 little tiny generators around the turbine, and then the turbine will go ahead and make the generators go, and then that itself puts out 10,000 watts. So if one of the generators went down or 10 of the generators go down, then you're down to maybe 8,000 watts of power. And then you can pull those generators, little tiny pods, completely out, put one back in there and replace it, and you're not down, and the system's running at the same time. So you can pull the generator out, and you won't be down with your power. I always look at things from A, who's going to build it, B, the customer's going to receive it, and then C, the maintenance, if there's any maintenance on it, has to be done. Oh, and then D is the interface to the house itself. So what you want to do is you never want to turn off your power to the electric company. What you want to do is have the electric company power going on, and then you go ahead and you do this, and you run your house, and then what you do is you have what I call a static light bulb or a static ballast. And what that does, that's fed into the electric company, and then you get a bill for like $3 a month. And that way you don't have to bother the electric company.
Mm-hmm.
That way the electric company doesn't even know you're using your own type of generator. And then, the other thing, too, is I have all this stuff filmed. I mean, all the stuff that I'm talking about is filmed. Believe me, I have 14 computers. And it's all filmed, and, I mean, that's 2 years just gone sitting up in a computer room and sucking off videos all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, I have almost every single video that was ever posted on any energy thing that's ever been done. Because I just snip them, grab them off the internet and everything. And that's what I mean by the research thing,
Mm-hmm.
And, the other thing, I'm not married, don't have kids or anything. I've been with a girl for basically 35 years and everything like that, and I help out her family and stuff. So I don't have any of the encumbersome things that a lot of people do with families and friends and a lot of stuff like that. No, the only thing I don't have right now is I live off of $200 a month. And I have back, my rent on my lab is backed by about 8 months now. And so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's one of the reasons why I'm going and putting this stuff up right now. I wanted to try and make it one more year and have everything 100% to show and tell. I can show and tell. I mean, if somebody were to come here, I can show them the stuff. But like I said before, I'm totally open, not paranoid. I'm thinking 50 billion people are going to come after you, like a lot of these characters. Yeah. Oh, another one that I built and everything is I built, you familiar with Coral Castle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I built a motor using his technology.
And that works?
Oh, yeah. That looks pretty cool, actually. Because that thing's a whole unique animal in itself, because it really tells you about what electricity is doing. It has a lot to do with some of Eric's theories and everything. But it also has a lot to do with, you ever know a guy named Sandeo?
I've never heard of that name.
Yeah, most people don't. But he's actually done experiments reflecting Eric Dollard's theory. And I knew about these experiments like way back in the 80s and 90s and everything. And so it's interesting when I see Eric talk about certain things on his theory, and I say, wow, this guy actually did it without the theory end of it. But in the Eric's big thing is all about radio, and that gets into Tesla. I mean, he admits it. He wasn't even looking for the whole Tesla thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's really done the equivalent. I mean, I have two in the lab right now. I have two gigantic Tesla coils that are the size of they're 12 feet wide. They're a quarter replica of the actual, what is it, the one out there in Colorado Springs. And on top of that, I know people that have duplicated a huge amount of Tesla stuff that nobody even knows about. They spent 10 years doing certain things, and there's some people down at the, Navy Labs, and people that work on the Hubble. Yeah, I know a guy that runs that whole thing. He's a character.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute character. But I've just, like I said, I've just been in the background, and I figure right now that unless I get something going financially, this stuff will just remain with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get it out, because then what I really want to do is be able to get it in plans, video, and then be able to just release it and just put it on the site so that people can download a PDF file and then download the videos, and then do how to build video, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this stuff. At least Newman had his shop running with his device, but then his house was disconnected, and to run the cables up it was almost like a mile between his shop and where he lived and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He lived down in Mississippi, so he didn't want to spend the money to run the cables underneath and wire his house, but he was running his shop, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that guy had some money behind him and everything. His biggest thing is just like a lot of people, got the wrong people around him. And when the money thing comes in there, the money people, they're not interested in what you're doing. They're interested in whether or not they can make the money for any shareholders at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sad thing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
let me ask you, when it comes to this guy that I'd like to get interested in helping you do that pullout, he's going to want to have a carrot of some kind of what technology is he going to be able to walk away with that he can finally bring to his people, saying, here's something that can run your stuff. Do you have something that's ready to go, that's ready to manufacture?
Yeah, that would be the CQ project, number 4 or 6 or whatever. That'd be the easiest, only for the fact that it's the quickest thing to do. It consists basically of some piping, it consists basically of a special turbine, and it consists of a tank. And that's basically the 3 things.
And you've got that. something that you can demonstrate along those lines, ready to demonstrate right now?
I can just pull up the films. The unit I'm staring at right now, the unit is sitting here. See, what happened is when I lost everything, this lab that I called the lab and everything, it was never supposed to be a lab. What it was is when I was developing the pull-out and everything, I rented this building, and I rented 3 other buildings. And so I had a lot of my stuff, and that's why I need to send you the letter, because I explain all this stuff in this letter that I posted on the Energetic Forum.
Mm-hmm.
So I had these shops in 3 different places, and then when I lost everything, I lost the rent on everything, so I had to consolidate everything in here. I've got 2 things in 40-foot containers, and I've got all the 15, 16 pullouts, which were made in the beginning. 1 or 2 of them were developed by me, and then after that I had commercial companies make them. So they were commercial viable products that I ended up going to SEMA, which is out in, it's a SEMA show that's out in...
SEMA in Los Angeles.
No, it's been out in L.A., but they had it in Vegas.
I mean in Vegas, yeah.
Yeah. So we were there and everything like that, and won awards, and I won the biggest inventors award in the world, and I've been on all kinds of shows. You'll see that once you go through the websites.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I consolidated everything, this lab here, which was really a machine shop, I've had to put everything in storage all around the shop and stuff. So the unit, the turbine unit, is sitting there. It just needs to be shoved in some water, and then we go ahead and, had to pop the pump on and just show the technology. But I have everything.
What would it take in terms of man-hours to get that thing operational?
Right now, here's my day. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't get to play with the shop till around 2 because I work a $5 job, and I can't get any. I've given up for the last year and a half. I've put out resumes and stuff, and I've gotten things back to, you're overqualified, blah, blah, blah,
mm-hmm.
So I can't really get a job like that. So, and nor do, in one weird way, do I want it, because then if I get a job that's paying me $60,000, $70,000, then I'm going to be there all day and not doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to catch 22.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as I keep this little tiny job I go, then I get here around 1, and then I can play in the lab till pretty much like 8 or 9, and I got to go eat my, get my 1 can of beer and bag of chips, and I call it a day, But that being said, it can be set up. It's just a matter of like putting it all together again. I have all the parts here and everything like that. But mine is the setup. They can just sit here and watch the original films that were made back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, they'll watch so much film, they'll be so bored with it, it'll be like, okay, we get the idea. And that's why right now I'm finishing up on a demo unit that demonstrates the principle. So then I can put that into a car, which my transmission is hanging on by a thread right now. And I have basically like 42 cents in my bank account until Friday. Friday I get a total of $98, which then goes for the cell phone. So I have all this wealth of knowledge and everything. I'm just, the best advance is why I started putting this out. And it's funny you contacted me, because my next 3 sites were going to be yours, that Stefano dude.
Yeah, overunity.com.
Yeah, his site, and then I was just going to put it on the KeelyNet site,
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I mean, it's too bad, you're not closer. You could just run by the shop here, and we could sit and talk for hours and days. I could just show you stuff.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Because
let me
of the things.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, along the lines of getting this turbine system that is ready to go, so to speak, to what it would take to get it operational. Just a ballpark idea. Are we talking about 12 hours? Are we talking 24 man hours to get it running?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, it's more like a month, and the reason being is because some of the pieces of equipment that go to the whole thing, they're in storage, and I know exactly where they are. Of course, they're always where you don't need them. They're 3/4 back in the back part of the 2 storage containers, that meaning the pipes and the union and everything like that. And this unit, to show the big unit, is monumental only for the fact that the space around here, it's not that I'm limited, it's just that I need the time to be able to clear the space and everything.
So
That's
the
why I'm
time,
building these.
so the time you're talking about is the time it would take to basically get things organized. You're in a log jam and things are held up by a log jam. Putting the log jam issue out of the question, just if you had the time and the resources to make this thing, and make anything that maybe is chalked away in the back of a storage container, just make it again, how long would it take you?
Oh, big unit? I don't know. It would probably be about 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, I'm looking at the small unit right here in the shop. What I wanted to do is build a little demonstrated model and then build the demonstrated principle with the cube. And then once I have that going, and once I show that with the video, then you pretty much understand what has to be done. The hardest part about this thing is just putting it, I've got to build a tank. That's my biggest thing, is to build the tank and then put even the small unit inside the pressurized tank. And then you'll see it run a small generator instead of a big generator. And I just put the big one. See, the turbine, I think if you look on a couple pictures there and everything, it's basically 6 feet wide by, it's about 6 by 6 cubed. 6 feet high, 6 feet wide.
And that produces how many kilowatts?
That's up to how much power you want to shove into the turbine. I mean,
if you had it in the self-loop mode that we talked about, how much could you get out of that conceivably?
It's how fast you spin it. Like, think of it this way. I'm touching it right now. I don't know if you can hear this.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Okay, that's the turbine right there. That is 1,000-pound turbine. So you figure when you turn that at RPMs, you can figure out how much torque you'll get off of that. So you add the speed, you do the calculation, you'll have all the power that you want.
Give me a number of, on the upper end, what do you think might be rational to achieve by a 6 cube size?
Oh, you can easily run 20,000 watt generator. That's why, like, I wanted to, you know, when you see, ideally, when this thing's all done for a small unit to go into a house and everything, it'll be in a tank. It's absolutely just basically a round tank, and you will have, like, basically a 220 wire coming out, and you have a switch on there, and that's it. And you'll have a pressure gauge or two here and there. That's it. And so then people will say, well, you've got batteries in there. You've got this and this and that in there. And so then you have to take apart the whole thing to show them. That's why I wanted to show the water thing first. Then I wanted to add the pressure thing to it. Then I wanted to enclose the tank to it. Those are the 3 operating things. But once you see it, like a little kid, let's go do algebra. You do it first before you start doing versa mathematics and a few other things. And once they understand the principle, then it's a no-brainer. And that's why I do, you know, when I show this thing, and once people get the principle of the thing, the people are going to start building these things just by themselves. You know? I mean, I don't have the money to patent it, nor do I want to patent it or anything like that. I mean, I want people to go ahead and do it and everything. I just want to be able to get it so I can keep the lab going and so that I can go get maybe an apartment or 2 again. You know, but I really would like to show, if you have that guy's interest, if you build a page and you ask me anything you want, and then you need pictures or videos or things like that, I'll be able to get them into your hands. And then after that...
You have quite a few photos posted on that website.
Yeah. And then if they go and see that this is the practical side, which is the pull-out, all I've done is I've reinvented. When I was at these shows and everything, we were all ready to go, and the big thing about it is the investors got scared. What amazes me is they gave me $2 million in the beginning. Not $2 million right away, but they gave me the money so I could develop the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for this person, he will be able to see a practical idea, and then, like you say, a carrot. At the end of the day, he will be able to see a couple of reliable type of energy systems that could work if they so please to put their money into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also would get the return on the money with the pull-out. And they could start a whole pull-out corporation. I don't want to, run the thing. The exit strategy would to go public and sell it, sell the whole thing off. Once we sell the 14, Home Depot was going to go ahead and do 12 commercial contractor shows throughout the United States. They were all hot into this, and they still are. They said, let us know when. I had to tell them, I said, the financing hasn't come through for the mold. The minute we get the mold, we can make 2 million units off the mold, and to give you the type of money we're talking about, there's 150 million pickup trucks in the United States. There's 300 million vehicles in the United States, so it's half of that. Mm-hmm. So what I did for the investors is I took 50 million, I took a third, I took 50 million, and then I put 1% of that, and then I put 0.1% penetration rate. So if you put it on a pie chart, you don't even see a line on the pie chart for the penetration into the market. So that penetration yields $1.7 billion. We would be selling these things for $3,500. We would be giving $500, what we call tool money, to the customer when they walked in there. And then the other big thing is that the tool companies get a chance to build brand new type of tools or arrangement of tool packages for the pull-out. So you can have like a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 grade products going into the pull-out. So you can buy the pull-out and put your own tools into it, or you can buy the pull-out and then buy a tool package from like Milwaukee Tools or Delta Tools or Porter Cable Tools. Mm-hmm. So then the tool companies, all they want to do is sell tools. So it's a whole new avenue to sell tools in. So when we were at the hardware show, they just absolutely loved that. They said, we're on board 100% with that.
Really quick, one thing I don't quite have in my mind is how this thing goes in and out of the truck bed.
Oh, yeah, it's very easy. You pull down your tailgate and you pull it out about 6 inches, and this thing was made to be manual, electric, or hydraulic. So you press a button if it was electric, or you crank a crank down and 2 legs come down. Then you pull it out another 6 feet, and then you crank your legs down, and it goes down, and then you shut your tailgate, and then your truck is independent. That can go down the road, all your tools are right there. And the pull-out, not only is it for contractors, we wanted to make them for catering, we wanted to make barbecue ones, we had storage ones. You'll see that all on the websites, you know. So when you pull the thing out, it gets released there. And then the hydraulic one was really cool because I made it remote control. So you just press the button and all 4 legs go all the way down. And that brings up a point. When I developed this, I called up Prince Hydraulics. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're the #1 hydraulic company in the world. I called them up and I said, do you know the difference between a single actuator cylinder and a double actuating cylinder?
I don't.
Okay, a single actuating cylinder is when you see dump trucks. They go up in the air. They get pushed up in the air, and then what happens is then you press a button and they gravity feed back down. so all the fluid comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they never made a telescopic double-acting cylinder. So then what I said is, they said, well, we don't make it. We're the best in the world, and it can't be made. So I said, oh, it can't be made, huh? I said, how about if I send you a $5,000 check? You can personally keep it. You send me your double-acting, your single-acting telescopic cylinder, and I said, I'll make it so it goes double-acting. And so they sent me the plans. I sent them the check, and in about an hour, I sent it back to them, and I sketched up where it needs to be changed and where the ports had to go. And the engineer calls me about a day later, goes, I never looked at it this way. This is feasible. I said, oh, I know it's feasible. How long can we build them for? He says, oh, we'll let you know. So then they let us know and everything. And then next thing I know is they had the price on them, and it was about $300 a cylinder. And I said, okay, send me 24 of them. And so, boom, got 24 of them. It worked beautifully and everything. And so you'll see that when you see the website. But the point here being, after that, they never had that. So the next thing I know, about a month later, I checked back on their website. They got that thing right up there in the front of their website, the new double-acting telescopic cylinders. It was great, you know.
You know what that reminds me
my
of?
patent attorney goes, do you want to patent that? Because you still, you told them how to do it and everything like that. I said, no. I said, I don't have the money. I said, let them have it. What do I care? I know what I did. And so now I've seen a lot of trucks, the triple-acting cylinders and everything like that. It's kind of cool to actually see it out there.
Uh-huh.
But
talking about trucks and stuff, my grandpa was the one that came up with the dually tire on a truck.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's the one that invented that and put it on the. He didn't necessarily put it on the market, but he came up with the idea that was then brought to market by somebody else. They were doing these big, long truck runs, and the tires were going flat and causing problems, and he just said, well, let's put another tire on it.
Yeah, well, that brings up the story of, did you ever hear of a guy named Charles Joyce?
Uh-uh.
Okay, he had this lab and everything called Electric Spacecraft Journal and everything, and we knew him for years. Well, what he did is when he was 28 years old, he was an engineer, and he worked for NASA, and they were having a problem with when they were doing the space Apollo missions. The capsule kept smashing into the sea and breaking apart, and so they had this parachute on it and everything. And his first day there, he's in there and he's being mentored by this other senior engineer. And he said, look, don't say anything, just observe. This is your first day and everything like that. So they're just arguing about what to do. They're a year and a half behind schedule, blah, blah, blah. What are we going to do about this capsule smashing into the water? So he just raises his hands, and everybody said, well, who are you? And he said, well, I'm brand new and everything. He goes, how about putting 2 more chutes on? and they all looked, and they go, and absolute complete silence. And the guy, his mentor, takes him out of the place. And he goes, you just made me look like an ass in here. Blah, 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 blah. And just reamed him out and everything. And he just said, well, they should put 2 more chutes on there. It would solve the problem. And that's exactly what they did. They put 2 more chutes on there, and it worked beautifully. So whenever you see the Apollo thing dropping down, you see the 3 chutes. Well, that was the guy that put it together. It's funny about invention how you end up seeing like so many people. I mean, the world's actually pretty small, when you really think about it. But to answer your question with the exit strategy, with the pullout and everything, basically to plan to sell off the company after it makes how many money or how long they want to keep staying in the game. And believe me, my side of it, I can take, because I know how much money is going to be made from this thing and what the market is. I can take 1%. They can have 99%. I will be a very wealthy individual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they can have a company. And there are a million ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but my point here is I have the ideas. I have so many ideas, and I see exactly the same way Tesla sees. Every single thing I see in vivid, SolidWorks 3D in my head. The minute I see it in my head, I just go ahead and build it. And I don't even have to build it. I don't even do drawings anymore. And drawings are for other people to relate so that they can see it. Because one of the biggest concerns when SolidWorks came out as a 3D company program, everybody was used to 2D, and there are a lot of people who can't think in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't draw in 3D. It's very hard for them, you know. And SolidWorks had to they couldn't get around it. They just, you know, they just said, well, this is our program and everything. The mold gets built. They get put onto a tractor choo-choo train, comes down the United States, goes into Home Depot, and that's pretty much it. And they sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was supposed to be run off a cell phone. Because all I would be doing is invoicing the company that made them and invoicing Home Depot. And Home Depot loved it because it didn't take up any shelf space. My units would be on pallets sitting in there with the garden shop or just sitting outside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then all you do is you cut open the shrink wrap that would be on the thing. You crank up the legs if they're manual, or you press a button, put a battery in it for the electric one, and then you just shove it into your truck. Down the road you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 30 seconds with the manual on. You know. I just wanted to make that so I could actually have a money flow coming in.
Yeah.
Now,
How long would it take from the time you pulled the trigger once you had the money to have a cash flow going, revenue flow from this?
Oh, from the pullout, probably six months. Because they said that basically it would take them about a month and a half to have the unit cut and built and ready to put into the machine. What all it is it's like it's a big waffle machine. If you look, you see how waffles are made. That's exactly how the unit's made, and they have a bunch of them. So they have a bunch of machines, and then they go ahead and they make the parts. So they'll make the 6 major parts, and then there are lids that go on top of it, and then a couple of screws, and then the people would be screwing the things together, and then that's it. They put the jacks in there, and then that's it. And then they shrink wrap it. And then so the money end of it would, the building end of it and cutting everything would be about a month and a half, and then they said they just need like a month, basically a month to go ahead and fine-tune everything, make sure everything's ready to roll for production level.
Who does the packaging? I mean, I know you're putting it on a crate in a box and, you know, shrink wrap, but there's still going to be some kind of a fancy display case, brochure, or whatever that people are going to use to buy it.
Oh yeah, that'll be just sitting there on the pull-out itself in front of the tool corral. The unit will be sitting in front of the tool corral, and then the brochures will be just sitting there. And then all they do, like I said, it's just shrink wrapped, and just go out there and cut it open with a utility knife and just throw the unit in your truck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you going to have, is part of your business plan, so to speak, to have some kind of marketing group come up with the proper display of this?
You could get all involved in that, but you don't really need to, because once you have the unit itself, you just go ahead and generate a 3 or a 2-sided page piece of paper that describes everything that it's there. You know, what I'll do is when I get back tonight, I'll send you the all the information and the PDF files and the business plan and everything. You can read all up on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you all that. You know, and you can see exactly how much money is going to be made. You can pass it along to anybody you feel like it. You know, one of the things you'll realize about me is that, you know, post it all out there. Send it all over the place. You know, And like I said, there's a finder's fee. If you put this all together, you get a finder's fee. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said, if the timing's right, and I said to Nancy, I said, it's kind of interesting that you called, because I told her I was watching. She goes, well, who's he? And I said, oh, he probably has the best website of all the free energy websites on there for the past, years. And I said, and I told her who you were and everything. And then all of a sudden, the next day, I see this email, and then I left my phone. That's why I didn't get back to you. The first day, I left my phone at the lab. So, and I just live about, half the street up from where this building is,
mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of neat that you called. So, maybe things will work out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And like I said, I've got even more stuff. One of the best things that I'm slowly working on is making wires cold. That's one of the reasons, even John sort of got into that, and he just abandoned it and everything, was sort of the Cromley generator,
mm-hmm.
which isn't Cromley generator, and I just call it a cold unit on my write-up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I have that thing, and it makes the wires all frosty. But I'm not even going to begin to get into explaining some of that stuff yet. I want to start. I've got too much. My thing is, I have too much, and I know it. But to be able to sit here and show everybody, they're not going to get into it. So at the right time, I will be able to show everybody. And my big thing is just to try and get, I'm down basically $300. It's $300 a month for the rent here that I'm negative every month with.
Mm-hmm.
$600 to rent this place. So I'm down 300, and he's just letting me slide for a while. But
you said you're 8 months behind, right?
Yeah, and 8 months behind, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
Are you actually living in the shop? Does it have a shower and kitchen?
No. What it was an empty building. It was a barn, one of those tinny steel buildings, that has a tin on the outside. Mm-hmm. And it was completely empty. And then when I got it back in 1991, 1992, it had rocks all in it. And I offered to pour concrete in here, and the owner wouldn't let me pour concrete. So it's got a dirt floor that's covered up with rubber and wood. And then what happened is I did all it was for was the researcher's Tesla. It's all I wanted it for at the time. And I hadn't even started the pull-out yet. And I built 2 gigantic coils in here to replicate all the stuff that Tesla did. And I built a lot of his equipment out of his books and everything. And speaking of which, and this is where I don't even get, what people think is the Tesla coil is not the Tesla coil. His Tesla coil is completely different than anything that people have even imagined. But they don't have the books that I do, so I can understand why they only look at. The coils that they build that are what they call Tesla coils, they're RF coils. It's as simple as that. They make high voltage, they make a spark, and that's it. Tesla never wanted any sparks. He wanted all the energy to go into the ground. And when he was able to pulse the ground a certain way, and when you were able to do that a certain way, then you were able to sit there and light light bulbs. And I jammed my light bulbs into the ground and would light the light bulbs. Simple as that. But I made the equipment. So then what happened is
what kind of bulbs do you put in the ground? Are they fluorescents?
No, they're incandescents. Current, baby. Hell with these stupid fluorescent bulbs.
You can put incandescent bulbs to stick them in the ground. How do you get the positive and the negative?
The air. I had a 16. What was it? No, 16. His original thing was basically 168 feet up in the air, and a quarter of that. So I had like 17, 18, 20 feet of antenna going up, and then I jammed all the power into the ground. first I did this on the lab bench, and the way I transmitted to the earth on the lab bench is that I sat here and I made a 6-foot long by 1 foot by 2 feet high, and it weighs like about 300 pounds, filled it with dirt. And that was my ground. And then I transmitted to that, and I did a lot of the experiments. See, when I do my experiments, I do them on an infinitesimal small level. Because it's got to work on a small level before you amplify anything. So once I went ahead and did that and everything, and that worked and stuff, then what I was able to do is then I connected the ground box, as I call it, to the ground in the real ground. And one of the tricks that Tesla knew is that his capacitance load at the top, that big gigantic tower, he had to have that equally down in the ground. He had to have that anchored into bedrock and everything else. He spent more time in the ground than he did above. And so when you have the same amount of it's basically capacitance, but when you have the same amount of metal in the ground as you do above, then you get some spectacular results. You know, people don't realize what ground means. They just think that, you know, you put ground into a radiator or something like that when you're making a crystal set, you know. But I went ahead and did that. That was the next experiment, and they would light it up a certain amount. And then after that, I went and built a gigantic 12-foot unit, and then I built another 12-foot unit for receiving the power. And then I was able to receive it at the same time, and at the same time then I independently just made it so it would pulse into the ground, and then I made a light with capacitor and a coil connected, and then when you would put it into the ground, it would set up a frequency, and then it would light, and you would send the current in there. Now, how that current gets there, that's under 50 billion theories. We can talk from here to the cows come along. Because everybody's got that theory in their head. And everybody's got a theory, well, how'd that work? And is it going through the ether? Is it going through rock? Is it, you know, how does it overcome the resistance of the earth? You know, the resistance of the air? You know. But building the equipment is the way I work. And going ahead and going along with all the theories and everything like that, well, we can do that till cows come home again. You know. But that's, so getting back to what the lab happened, then I had to sit there, hoist those things up on the ceiling, basically, hang them up, and then I slowly started building the lab with 4x4s and bracing everything, and then it just led to covering up one area to another area to another area, to the point where now I have 2 floors. So to answer your original question, I have a bathroom outside, and then I sort of have a mirror and a little bath thing here where I can shave and everything like that. And then at nighttime I go up to my friend's house, Nancy. So we used to live together, but I lost everything. You know, and she ended up having like a heart attack, and she went blind for about 3 weeks in one eye because her retina thing blew out. She emotionally lost everything. You know, and most girls emotionally will fall apart on it after a project like this. Because we were so close. We were ready to go. And a couple of people came in that were friends of this main investor, and they just started interrupting things. And I said, you know, make a short story shorter, stuff didn't go well, and I said, look, you got to get your ducks in order, whether they're doing it or not doing it. You know, and they came back, and basically what they said is they made allegations that I was embezzling. Well, if you know me, that'll never happen in a million years. And what they wanted was they wanted full accountability of everything. So they wrote up a 2-part contract, and the 2-part contract was they were supposed to give me $18,000 for a due diligence part. That due diligence part was to show them the financials, to show them where the pull-outs were, to show them the pull-out drawings, and to show them the registered name and the patents and all that. So I did that. Their own attorneys ended up calling me saying, if all the stuff that you showed me, if all my clients did that, I'd be out of a job. He said, everything's impeccable. I said, yes. I said, it's other people's money. I'm responsible for other people's money. It's not my money. It's their money, you know? Mm-hmm. And so they decided not to do the deal, and so they basically said, sue us. And they knew I couldn't sue them. And my friend Nancy fell apart, and then I realized that, you know, this is the end of that. And so basically I just sat there and said, well, I guess we're going in another direction. And that's when I came in here, had to put everything back into the lab, shut down the 3 places I rented, put everything in storage. And that's taken the last last 2 years to do. And in the last year and a half, I've been basically at the same time doing that, I've been building all this equipment. And so now I wanted to have about another year to build it completely, to have every single one of these things 100% functioning and ready to go. And then all I would do is say, here, come by the shop, look at it all run. So I'm almost there. I have most of this stuff done. The lawyer and the law team that I had together, there's only 6 the most prevalent and biggest oil company lawyers in the world. I'm number 7. I picked a law firm that went up, you know, Lego blocks. Well, there's Tyco blocks, and they're similar to Lego. And that's the law firm that got them their patent against Lego. Mm-hmm. And they've done some very high-level stuff. And so the guy, when I first went in there, the original guy, he sat there and he said, look, can you at least make it in the United States? I said, oh, yeah, I would. You know, and because he just loved the product. You know, and he says, you're going to make a fortune on this. I said, yeah, if I get the right people around me. And it's all about the right people. You know, and that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing that Aaron and all these people wonder why. Like you say, the emotional part, that's the energy, that's the current. If the emotional part in relationships doesn't work out, you're not going to have any relationship or any situation, you know, coming to fruition. And that's what I see, like, in all these ventures and everything like that, when the money people come in, if they're not right with the inventor. And I'll give all the money people one good thing. A lot of these inventors, man, they're paranoid and they're too attached to their idea. Mm-hmm. You know, they think, you know, and that's a major problem, because then they get attached to it and they're like, I can't give up the baby. Oh, it's mine. I invented it. You guys don't understand me. And that was like Joe Newman. You know, had Joe Newman had the emotional side a little bit more together, he would have had his device out there and running. You know, but he didn't have it together. Yeah. So, like I said, if you can, you know, put together a page, we do an interview, and I get you whatever you need, maybe something will happen out of this.
Hopefully. You know, got that recording. They could be part of the record to let people know who you are and what you've got.
Yeah, and then, like I said, what I'll do is I'll send you the original letter I put out, and then I'll send you the business plans and stuff like that, and links to the pullouts, the inner links to the pullouts, because they go, like, it's sort of like going down a deep rabbit hole, and you'll be able to see all the videos and the shows I've been on, and like I've been on Home Builder, and why didn't I think of that, and a whole bunch of shows, and you'll see the units, you know, so that from a business point of view, you'll be able to understand that you can show this, that this is a complete turnkey operation. There's nothing else for me to do except sit here and envision 50 other pullouts and how they can be applicable to industry. Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest thing is helping the contractor. This is, as I say in the business plan, the contractor uses his truck the same way that somebody in a Mercedes uses a cell phone and laptop, and it used to be a fax machine. Well, now it's like pretty much the cell phone more than anything else. That's their business thing. Whereas the guy that builds your house and everything, his truck is his his tools. And if that can be brought to bear, then the money can be brought in, and then that money can be shoved into these ideas. And God, for me, I knew that there was X amount of money just sitting in the bank ready to go. All I do is the turbine is 3/4 done in SolidWorks. And so all I do is call up a couple of companies and have them make it. That's where that is from that point of view. Basically it consists of a tank, some pipes, a couple pressure things, and basically a generator off the shelf. I like the other generators better, but you can just use an off-shelf generator.
What do you think of the whole open source idea from, let me describe what I mean really quick and briefly by open source. Open source does not mean you give your idea away and get nothing for it. It means you make it available for people to build a business, and then when they're successful, they send you a royalty. So they could download the plans for a small fee. You would get some money off. I mean, that'd be one source of revenue. And then you would basically say, rather than, if you want to go into business doing this, let's talk first and sign up a license. Then they've got to come up with the money, the capital up front, to buy the license. This way, you have local machine shops who are already equipped to make this stuff and assemble this stuff. Small manufacturing organizations around the world could download plans like for this turbine thing. They could start making them and selling them and immediately be getting revenue. And then once they're in the mode of making revenue, then they send you a royalty. That's what I mean by open source. What do you think of that?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that could work, providing that in the beginning that I would get the finances to be able to go ahead and keep this thing going, meaning the lab going. That's my biggest thing, is that the lab basically runs about $8,000 a year, and then at that point, I still don't have any place to live. That's what I'm trying to get at, and so
right, absolutely. I mean, that is outside of the question of coming up with a way for you to get a better revenue stream right now, so that you've got in many regards there's some interesting parallels between you and the Eric Dollard story.
Oh yeah, there are. The only difference between me and Eric Dollard is a very simple one. I have the product. Like right now, I don't need, in a weird way, I don't need money to buy anything, because I have such stuff here. I mean, if Eric Dollard would walk into this shop, he would flip out, because he could just go ahead here and grab the equipment, and he would just sit there and build what Eric wanted to build. That's the equipment I have. I mean, I'm staring right now at 400 capacitors right now, just sitting here on one of the shelves. That's the type of stuff I have. And the reason why I have it is because I've been collecting this stuff since the 70s. So you go to 70s till now. So I don't need that type of stuff. The money would go to, pay for an apartment, put gas in there, food, and then to pay the rent on this thing. And then the only other monies that I would need is to go ahead and buy just basically a little bit more raw material. That's my big thing, is the raw material part of it. Outside of that, the stuff that I have here, I've done all this work. That's why I've come out now, is because I can't go any further right now. The only further I can do is I'm building little units to demonstrate some stuff. And then at the same time, I want to be able to bring it out into the open. And it's at the point that the pull-out is at. They're ready to go out the door. They're like little children. They're ready to go to, college. The dream with the pull-out was to immediately go ahead, get a piece of land, which I know right now where it is, pour concrete within 1 month, put a building, have 37 people come. They would erect the building I have in less than a month's time, put 440 phase electric in there, and then I will produce within probably about less than 1 year later, I will produce Tesla's thing up and running 100%. And then that's the transmission of electricity, and you will be able to, on a drill, instead of putting a battery in your drill, you'll be able to put a capacitor, especially those Maxwell capacitors. You'll be able to put the Maxwell capacitor in there with a certain resonance coil, and then you'll be able to pick up that energy and go ahead and press a button anywhere as long as the transmitter is working. Just like you receive radio.
How far away would you have to be from the transmitter before it would drop off?
It's not going to drop off. That's the beauty of what Tesla wanted. Not going to drop off. It's going to be a wave. It's going to go to a null point on the other side of the Earth and go back. It'll be a pump. It'll be going boom, 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 like a big giant heart. And it works on the same reason that the turbine works. It works on a hydraulic pressure thing. See, the way I envisioned all this was just envision your heart. Your heart, like right now you're sitting there and you're resting and your heart's beating at 72 beats per minute. The only way that your heart is ever going to beat faster is it's going to be faster when you start physically moving your muscles. And that's hydraulics. You're flexing. So when you flex, your heart goes, whoa, we need higher pressure. We need more pressure. There's a reason why people can't lift up big things. It's like one of the things I lift in here all the time is I have a 390-pound anvil. And every other day I'll sit there and go, okay, let's do 2 or 3 reps with that. I pick it up off the ground, then I put it back down and pick it up off the ground. Well, that's hydraulics. At that point, your heart locks, tightens all your muscles, boom, 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 pick it up, and you're ready to go. I'm using the hydraulic, meaning the pressure that goes in your veins and everything like that from the pumping thing. So when you run and everything, then your heart's going faster and faster and faster until a certain level that you level off and everything. I used to run 180 miles a week and everything, some 4-minute miles. Till my knee blew off, I was getting ready to run, I wanted to run the 80 games, but that got canceled by the Russians. They backed out on it, I think, But, no, I still work out every day, everything like that. But it's the only way you can is to be able to build the stuff I do and move the stuff I do. You got to be in shape. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things, this lab's so packed that I got to move a lot of stuff around to use certain machines and everything. And I think to give you an idea of the lab, since you didn't read that paper, it's 40 feet long, 20-some feet high, and then 25, 30 feet wide. And it was empty when I got here. It's not empty now. Completely filled. But any other questions? Like Eric, I can just keep on going. I saw that one interview. He sat there and said, "I'm all pumped up on coffee. Let's go."
Yeah, with Smart Scarecrow, that was funny.
Well, I know Scarecrow doesn't. I could tell at the very end of that interview. He says, "Well, me and Eric sort of differ." Because I'm surprised why nobody sat there and asked Eric, like, why did you walk away from people that gave you a car, gave you money, set you up in a free lab? Isn't that what you wanted in life? Nobody ever asked the goofy, hard questions.
Well, I think they wanted to stay away from the politics of that.
Yes, I understand that. they wanted that interview, and they've got to walk the political line, so at least air comes on, they can get the technology off of them and everything.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Regarding the wireless transmission, and you're talking about it being picked up anywhere, so somebody could be in China and running a drill on this thing. Are you saying that you would set up a transmitter like he was going to do at Wardenclyffe that would power the planet?
Yeah. Do exactly the same thing. The only difference with that is that it's a matter of power capability. Remember, he wasn't making free energy that way. He was going to use diesel fuel to run and coal to run steam turbines to run regular generators, but then he would power Wardenclyffe. And when you went ahead and did that, that's the power. But then that power is radiated out to the globe, and then you can receive it. And then,
from the classical point of view, the amount of energy you get out is going to be the same as what you put in minus losses.
Yeah, but there is, as Eric Dollard will tell you, you're not really losing propagation because there is no propagation. There's no velocity of stuff. And you have to understand that by doing his original experiments, which are very, very simple. And his original experiment was sitting there taking Henry chokes and capacitors, and depending on how you made it, you would make a transmission line. That transmission line, you would start with a little bit of power, and you could open it up at the back end, and that power would become very heated and hot and everything, and you would be losing. Or you could go the other way, which he calls the dielectric, and you could use a capacitive effect. And at that end, you could go ahead and light a light bulb or run a little motor. And that being said, I'm staring at and just completed a coil right now that I'll be able to sit here and take off all the microwave and make it work the same way a cell phone receives power. Even though the cell phone kicks in with a battery to operate it and everything, you use certain microwaves to be able to light light bulbs and run a little motor. That's another project I'm working on. But I'm making that so it's a small thing. So you almost call it like a Wardenclyffe thing, but it's not really. It's working on a whole completely different set of parameters.
So let's just throw out an example, and maybe this isn't the proper example, but let's say Tesla built Wardenclyffe, and it took, I'm just going to throw out a silly number. I mean, let's just say he pumped 1 megawatt into it to set up the resonance on the planet. What I understand you to be saying is that people with receivers could pick up that power anywhere on the planet, and that even though that amounted to terawatts of power simultaneous, that excess energy is coming from where?
Well, let's put it this way. You go ahead and you have a megawatt of power, let's say he's going ahead and using. All intents and purposes, you'll be able to run a megawatt for the receiving end of it. Now, that being said, there would be only X amount of people that could end up using their drills on that system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did it that way, that's sort of like what Marconi and Alexander people wanted to do with their systems, because they took parts of Tesla's stuff. They fully didn't understand what he was doing. And if you understand what Tesla is doing, there are a couple of ways that you can run his system. And one of the ways is that sparks and arcs. That's just an RF way, and it just makes voltage. It shoves the current down to like zero. That's one of the reasons why people can sort of put the power through them and everything like that. Now, Tesla could go ahead and make it so that you could have the current side of it, but you have to read certain patents to understand that. And the only person I know that's really read those patents and put it into effect and everything was Don Smith. And a lot of people are still playing around with that. And I think even on the Energetic Forum, that has close to 300,000 views or something like that, because people really want to see how that works and everything like that. But you have to understand how Tesla did that, but you have to understand one of the things about Tesla. Try and walk down where Tesla walked. I mean, Tesla didn't all of a sudden originate all his ideas in the beginning. He saw certain people over there in France. He saw certain people here and there, and he understood certain things. And then once he understood certain stuff, then he combined it with his own thinking, and then he was able to create, that tower. That being said, the tower can work, like I said, basically 3 different ways. You can just make arcs and shoot them up in the sky, or you can pump the ground, and you pump it with 1,000 watts of energy, then you can use 1,000 watts and no more. Or you can pull in like an etheric pump to be able to get energy. And when you pull that etheric pump working, then you can get, like, as you say, terawatts of electrical power. But then you have to back
hold on just a second. I had to pay attention to a note my wife just gave me, and I missed that last part of number 3.
Oh, you want me to say 3 again?
Yeah.
Oh, so the third way is to be able to start up called Wardenclyffe, the transmitter, whatever, and then you start that up, and etherically you're pulling like a pump action, and you're pumping. Eric has the right way. You're pulling, basically, is to use his term, counter space. You're pulling a dielectric, and what you're doing is you're making a stress, and that stress builds and builds and builds up. And what you want to do is you want to relieve it, because if you don't relieve it, then what's going to happen is that you can blow apart. Eventually, you would be able to blow apart and split this globe, and that gets into another whole set of experiments I've done with Ed Leakenskow, because a lot of people don't realize.
You mean Ed Leakenskow?
Yeah, what he was able to do is, I've been to Machu Picchu, I've been to the pyramids, I've been to Mexico, I've been to all those places, and Leakenskow has all the same markings that all those places have. Easter Island, all the same identical markings. That's a whole nother conversation I can get into about those stones and the way he made them liquid and everything like that. One of the reasons why I know that is because I was born in Mexico. I lived there for 3.5 years. My mother was down there. There was an old lady that was down there, and she made these really cool pottery things, and my mom bought a couple of them. She goes, well, where do you get the clay and everything? She goes, well, they're not clay, it's the stone. And the lady goes, what do you mean? And she goes, well, I use these herbs and this plant stuff, and when I pour it onto the stone, I make the stone moist and soluble, and then I'm able to mold them. And I still have one of the bowls somewhere, within his lab somewhere, that my mom had when she was down there. So, anyway, getting back to the Tesla thing, it's a pump, and it pulls in, let's say, just called energy. I hate that word anyway, because it's got a billion connotations to it, but it pulls in some fluid, and that fluid is able to expand, and when they expand, and it's done right, and it's set up right and everything, then you have to take off the load. Because you can only have that thing pumping at a certain frequency, because if you pumped it at different frequencies, what's going to happen is that it's not that you would have a runaway effect, it's just that you would be able to sit there and you'd have excess power that you wouldn't be using, So people could go ahead and have a drill in their hand, and they would have a coil, and they would have a capacitor, and then you'd be able to have a power thing. And you could go into a charge of batteries within the thing if you wanted to, but why do it when you can go ahead and have an antenna on the thing and be able to do it, But the only way you're going to learn all this stuff is actually be able to, do and build a lot of his equipment and read more than a lot of his books that he has out. It's like one of the things a lot of people don't know about Tesla and everything. I have 2 books on is his personal life. You know, he sent tons and tons of money back to his family, and his sisters were always writing him, and I'm poor, and I'm destitute, and he didn't feel sorry for him. He just helped him out and everything. And, you know, there was a lot of sides to Tesla that, you know, he just didn't want to make known, you know. And his idea that I don't think that, you know, he was a recluse and he never went out with girls and everything. I just innately know it. It's a feeling, again, by reading a lot of stuff. You've got to read all of it, get a feel for the type of person he was. I think he had some liaisons. I just think he kept them very, very private, because I think the liaisons that he had were with married women. Yeah, that's just an opinion. It's no more than anybody else's opinion. But I think he probably had some, you know, liaisons, very high caliber women, and he kept it at that, and they kept it at that. Remember the turn of the century and where people were in life. Not like today, you know.
If we were to put a dollar amount to how much you need to live so that you're not, you know, in the case you're right now, having to work a $5 job in the morning, $5 an hour.
Oh, you mean a TJ Maxx? Well, that's a trip job. Just on a side note, TJ Maxx, I don't know if you have them out there, but it's they sell all the high-end stuff that all other stores like Macy's and Sears and everything give to them and everything. They have over $21 billion liquid cash in the bank company. They have more liquid cash than Walmart, more than Costco. Yeah. So anyway, the dollar amount and everything, getting back to that, basically, I'm a simple person, you know. $2,000 a month, 24,000. Mm-hmm. You know, because I don't believe in all this waste and money and everything like that. I mean, I got to get my car fixed because the first gear and the automatic thing's going, and I just don't have the time to rip the motor apart and rebuild the tranny right now. But it's
because I'm thinking that it would be difficult on the heels of their dollar fiasco.
Oh, I know that. He's killed it for everybody.
Yeah, I would think we could put up a crowdfunding page. You've got your donate button on your site, and it's people like to have some feedback of here's how much money's been donated, and here's the goal, here's that we want to reach. And I think doing something like that might be a step to consider. Just think about it. You can get back to me on that.
Oh yeah, no. If you want to set up something like that, feel free to do. One of the things I've wanted to do is I wanted to take all the videos that I have and put them up there. I mean, that's a project in itself, so that they could get it all, because I've downloaded basically videos since the day one of the internet. So all these people that are searching for certain things or looking back on certain things, I would be able to put up a video library that people would be able to go to immediately instead of searching through the whole internet to try and get this. So like if you wanted the Don Smith's videos, I've got them all. If you wanted Peter Linneman Borderland videos, I have them all. You know, I have
what about copyright?
Well, the whole point, and see, this gets into a very hairy area. The internet, to me, is the same thing that when you put your garbage out on the street. It's open for everybody. And when these people that are saying, well, it's my rights and my copyrights and this and that, and if you don't want that stuff put out, then there is encrypted stuff that you can go ahead and you can make it so that you don't have to have it that way. The perfect example is Bedini's guy that makes those CDs. Oh, what the hell is his name?
Craddock, Anthony Craddock.
Yes, exactly. Well, there's one tape that he does with it's totally encrypted, and you can't get the stuff. And there are a bunch of files. You know, you buy the tape, you have 1 year to be able to look at them, and then that's it. Well, if people really want that copyright type of stuff, then they go ahead and do it. And it's like Peter Linneman, he actually, I looked at one of his posts a couple years ago, and I have a video because he sent it to me. It wasn't released, and he doesn't even know he says it wasn't released, but I have it sitting in my collection, only because I talked to him and asked him for him. He said, well, we're not really going to release it, but I'll send it to you anyway just so that you can view it. So I have a bunch of videos that a lot of people just don't have, and then I have a lot of film that I've filmed and everything like that. So, meaning getting back to, I understand Eric Dollar has basically ruined it for like a lot of people out there, and a lot of people are going to be very nebulous about donating $1, let alone $10 or $15, because they're not getting as what I call value added. They're not getting anything. They're not getting any value fulfillment, and they all get stung emotionally, and it's more of the emotional side. I mean, most people that can afford to get away with $25, but it was the idea to really help this guy, and this guy just basically put up his finger to everybody and said, screw you, And the shame thing about it is that a lot of these same people are going to go spend $49, $59, $89 on these new books that he's probably going to have come out. And when they get it, yeah, there are going to be pictures in it, but at the same time, they're going to go ahead and look at it and go, you know what? I don't even understand a quarter of what he just said. And there are a lot of electrical engineers that may or may not even agree with some of his theories. That's why I say everybody should get along with each other and stop fighting like little kids. I would love to meet Eric Dollar. I mean, Eric Dollar and I'd sit down and have a field day talking. I'd be right there with his beer and everything. That's the big difference. Have the equipment built. It's like anybody wants to know about Bedini and everything like that. Well, I have the stuff. I offered Bedini, Linneman to come here. Both of them said no. I offered to go out there. I didn't get a response. You see, that's the same way that way back in the day, you could only get information off the back of science and mechanics, and then all of a sudden the VCR and the POW arguments, and eventually VCR won, so then VCR started to come by, and that's when Linneman and people started making tapes, and then they started having conferences. Well, I have every single tape from every single Tesla conference there is. And then there's Ellswick and everybody like that. That was a big thing for a while, And he just had one, didn't he? Didn't you just go to his?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. And so he's one of the old people that are still in the game. And so with all this stuff that I have, that's the difference between, like, Eric Dollar being out in the desert for 30 years. But I'm a different type of person. I think you've figured that out.
Yeah.
There's a thing about crystal batteries to John Bedini and everything. Well, he got those. That's a long story, but at the end of the day, he's made it so that you can have it in a battery and everything like that. Well, we've been able to make it so we have a solid-state battery. It's pretty cool.
Now, battery implies you put charge in and it gives charge out.
Exactly, and this one's a sort of solid state with a crystal instead of a liquid state. You don't have to worry about any water pouring out of there. You don't have to worry about anything like that.
What about price point and power density?
Oh, well, it acts just like a normal, regular battery. You just charge it up, and you go ahead, and the only difference is you just don't have sulfuric acid in it.
Well, I'm talking about, is it going to be cheaper than a lithium-ion, or more expensive, bigger, or smaller?
Oh, it'd be way cheaper. Way cheaper. But I'm away from, I can go into the whole battery thing.
Well, yeah. What about size, just really quick, and then I need to head out? Would the size be bigger or smaller than what it's replacing?
It could be smaller, and it would be more power density. Anything you need to know, just give me a ring, and we can talk for hours if you want.
Okay,
but at least we got a good, what is it? Holy cow, it's 6:30. At least we got a good 2 hours in talking, introducing each other. If I had the money, I would just jump in my car and drive right out there and see you.
Yeah, I would love to come out and see you. You've got all the goods.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
Maybe doing it sometime. You've got me intrigued with all the stuff you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
might come and camp out for a bit and help you get those videos uploaded and get things organized and whatnot. I've got a family to keep happy, so can't take too much time.
How many do you have children or just a wife?
Yeah, we've got 4 kids and a wife.
Wow.
7 through 13.
Oh, you got your hands loaded. Boys, girls?
3 girls, 1 boy.
Oh, that's great. You got your hands more than loaded.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. You know. Hey, at the end of the day, as long as every person contributes and make the world a better place, even if it's just for a couple of people and everything, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
Without the humanity part of it, there's no sense of even waking up out of bed. There's only one attitude you get out of bed with. That's an attitude of positiveness. If you wake up, you're depressed, and you're just like a vampire, and you go into your place, and all you do is suck people's energies right down on the floor. And most people can't combat other people like that, you know. So anyway, enjoy your day. Have fun with your errands. And like I said, give me a call. And usually in the mornings I'm gone pretty much from 6 till 1. So it's always after 1 o'clock I'll be there. But you can leave me a message. You know, I'll get it off the phone after that.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll catch you later.
Nice talking to you, sir.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
We were supposed to go in the past like year and a half, we were supposed to go into Home Depot. We put $2 million into the project, and that was supposed to bootstrap me with building the complete lab that I wanted to build. So what happened is the investors pulled out. We were supposed to make 14,000 units for Home Depot, 15 for Lowe's, and like 12,000 for Sears. And so for some reason, they decided to just not go ahead with it. So that left me basically destitute, lost everything, cars, trucks, house, everything. So I'm basically living in my car and staying at somebody's place for in and out, showering at another place, shaving at my lab, and working at a $5 job right now in the mornings just to get gas money and, you know, food here and there. So, that being said, when you go to that website, you'll see what we want to do in a huge way to bring in money. If we sold the 14,000 units just to Home Depot and everything, we'd be a $1.7 billion company. The cost of making the units would be almost about $600,000. And then the rest would be absolute 100% cash flow in the bank for me and or the investors. And so then what I was going to do is then
How much money do you need to pull that off?
Just basically $1 million. So everything's set to go. I make one phone call up to Canada to the biggest mold production company. And I have a finder's fee of basically $1 million to anybody who brings in the correct people to do it.
Now, I know of somebody who, I met him at the Tesla Tech conference 3 years ago. He's got an incubator organization sourcing extreme breakthrough technologies to try and bring them out and they've been trying to source these things, and they presently are sitting on several $1 million in an escrow fund waiting for a project. They've got the money, they don't have the project. And so I could put you in touch with him and, you know, let him know that this project that you need the money for isn't an exotic project itself, but it would give you the funding you need to then finance in a big way some of these other projects you have going.
Yeah, the main project that I want to finance, which is the quickest for people to intellectually understand, is I think it's 6, 10, I forget what one's on there, but it's the turbine one, the water turbine system. It'll make all turbines completely obsolete in the world. And basically what it does is it's a pressurized type of tank. It has a specialized turbine inside of it. When you add the pressure to the turbine spins. At that point, you can put the generator on the outside of the tank. You can put the generator inside of the tank. But once it gets going, then it just goes. You take it up to the load level that you want by pressurizing the tank, and then that's it. Call it a day, and it spins and goes. And I worked 10 years on that project before I did what's known as the pull-out, which is the project with the toolbox. And so that is the one that basically you can go to Home Depot and build this. The minute that I show how to do it, every single person on the face of the globe will be able to go right out the door and go build this stuff and experiment with it and go ahead and hook it up to their streams, their waterfalls, you name it. Put on any type of load system to it, pressurize it, and it runs itself. And it's pretty cool. And I'm staring at one right now that's 4 feet wide, sitting right outside the shop, covered up. So, that being said, that's something that people can understand. It doesn't get into electricity outside of just putting a generator on it and everything. And then there's several other ones. Like I worked with Joe Newman. Most people don't even know that. I worked with Cyril. Oh, what a character that guy is. And like Joe, like all the Newman devices I see on the internet in the last like 10, 12, 13 years, every single one of them is wrong. Not what Joe has, not how it's built, and everything like that. And I've got one sitting here, wires. Why don't we put a bread in there and you make the wires all frosty and you freeze the bread? That's the option of electricity. And that's a side that nobody has even begun to look at. And so what I do is I've dedicated basically my life and everything to research of basically that and a few other things. And so what I do is I build everything, and I have the talent to be able to go ahead and build it. I just have been born that way, and I've been able to go ahead and look at things a little bit differently than the average person. And I've never really brought this to anybody's attention or anything because basically I just have wanted to be in the background right now. And it's just been recently that I feel, especially after the whole Eric Dollars thing, I mean, there was a lot of people looking forward to seeing what he could do and everything. And, that's a whole gigantic, it's almost like the world of bizarre going on there.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but, he had lab donated to him, had equipment donated to him, had, car donated to him, money donated to him, and then he just, runs a ship over to, I guess, Aaron's website, and, then he can just go ahead and publish books, which is fine. He's more of a theorist than anything else, and his character, though. I mean, I saw your, I think that your last post on the Scarecrow show. That was interesting. But getting back to me a little bit, I've done a million things. I've built race cars. I've worked for I've done forge work at the highest level in the world. And like I said, I just build everything. So that being said, I built this little website about 6 months ago, and I threw it together pretty much in a night, 6, 7 hours and everything, and I haven't gotten back to it. And basically, when I saw this whole Eric Dollard thing running around, I almost felt sorry for a lot of the people that threw in their money and thought that they were going to get something out of it. I at least wanted to post it. There's some other options out there, and I'm prepared to eventually show them all. I just need the time to be able to put up the videos, the correct videos, everything. because that only shows about 20 things. I have basically probably over at least 100 projects that I'm going to be putting up there. And then at the end of the day, what I want to do is put a unit into somebody's house and just, I'm test it, I'm run it, have electricity flow through their home, and that's about pretty much it.
I'm raising my hand.
What gets me is that, to me, it's because of I've lived with all this. I've run my own lab and everything with my own electrical turbines and stuff like that, and to me it's just common sense now. But to everybody else, it's not. And one of the big things that's happened to me is did you read a letter that I posted on, I think, Aaron's energetic forum?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. The reason being is I put up a letter telling about myself and everything like that, and there's another website that goes along with this, and it's oh God, the name just got changed. Let me get it here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to bring all this stuff, and I still do. I want to give it out to the world in general. And when I show this one thing, it's going to basically make everything on every single form completely obsolescent. And people can go to Home Depot and build this type of device. Don't need any skills. The site is called mobileutilitytoolbox.com. And what I did is for the last, what it is I developed a toolbox that basically goes on and off your pickup trucks, any pickup trucks in the world. You release it from the vehicle, and all your tools pop up on it. And then from that, you get to do anything that you want. It has a microwave, it has all this stuff and everything.
Free energy now.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sterling Allen. You can join us online at freeenergynow.net, where you can find a list of past guests, download those interviews, and read the stories associated with those shows. We're joined today, August 10th, 2013, by Geoffrey S. Miller of Energybat Labs, based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. Since the age of 10, Geoffrey has been in a laboratory setting of one kind or another, which has continued to grow both in the equipment available as well as in the number of interesting projects being experimented on, some of which look promising to make it to market not too long from now. If you go to his website, energybat.com, you will see that presently they list 20 projects, including cold electricity, crystal batteries, centrifugal energy amplification, Tesla experiments, including a Tesla turbine, magnetic rail, Bedini energizer, Energybat alternator, Newman magnet motor, Searle motor, Holes fusion, Joule ringer, Energybat rotating solenoid motor, and the one that caught my first attention was the Energybat Labs household 10 kilowatt generator, which from what I can tell could be another instance of the self-looped motor generator class of device we've been tracking for about a year now. This was a pre-recorded interview, so after a brief segment it starts a bit abruptly, so excuse that, and here we go.
Hello?
Yeah, thanks for letting me call you back.
No problem.
What was that other place you said besides the Franklin Institute that you hung out with in the Philly area when you were growing up?
It was the Philadelphia Free Library, and then there's the Philadelphia Natural History Museum. I mean, if you go to those three things, and Library of Congress, basically, pretty much the real books are probably still there, but nobody really investigates books. They're all onto iPods and iPads and a million other, things. So I grew up there, used everything, took classes. They shut down the library that was up there. 99% of most people didn't even know that the Franklin Institute had 3 floors of the library. Tesla did lecture there. At the end of the day, I got a lot of the books out of there. And so that what I did is I just have always wanted to make what's known as a prime mover. You know, I see all this stuff that's on all these websites. I've followed these websites since then, basically 95, 98, when the internet, basically was put up. And at the end of the day, what has to be done is that you need to work backwards. You need to work off of, like, basically a 10K house unit type of generator that's available to everything. And I've always looked at the very simple end of things, and I go ahead and then I build prime movers, or I test other people's ideas out, whether or not they can be hooked up in a prime mover, configuration. And then, 2, you need to look at it from the client's point of view of it being interfaced into their house, And then 3, you've got to be able to look at it from, does it make any noise? Does it create anything that EPA or anything like that would, freak over? And most people don't look at things like that. They just, they jump in, they learn a little bit, and, then they say all of a sudden they have something. Because I'm sure that within your, travels, you still have not seen an actual unit that really, is hooked up to a house and runs itself, right?
No.
Yeah. And basically the one main reason for that is the fact that I think a lot of people don't really understand electricity, And one of the things that I've always had a dream of, and I've worked on it, and I'm very, very close to it, is, how you have a toaster and you put a bread in there and it heats up all the closed loop system in itself, So it's a definition. So I don't really like to use it. I pressurize a tank and it makes it go, and it reuses itself, And that's.
Now, my question is, if you've got that capability, why would you even want to mess with the first 2?
Mess with the what?
With the first 2 options of having it run completely from an internal, from some external water source or wind source, or as an assist.
Just for the fact that the amount of money that you just have to buy, like you would have to buy a tank, you have to make a not a specialized tank, but you just have to make a custom tank, and you have to make the turbine, and you have to make it with the generator inside and everything like that as a standalone unit. That would be probably the size, depending on how much speed you want to make it at. It would be pretty much the size of an air conditioning unit that's on the outside of a house. You could put it right there, But at the same time, I just wanted to let people know that if you show the principle with this turbine, then people in the woods in the beginning that may not have any money to go buy a tank like that with this thing, then they can just go ahead and start putting this thing right to use immediately. That was what I was thinking from the actual water end of it.
Yeah, I still go back to whenever you've got some kind of environmental interface, whether it's a stream or a river or ocean waves or wind, you have to build for extreme situations. You have to engineer for salt. You have to engineer for hurricanes. You have to engineer for floods. And it gets expensive. And if you've got a closed-loop system capability, that seems like you should focus on that and not even mess with any other interface.
Oh, yeah, but people would end up doing it anyway, only for the fact that, I show them how to do this thing, they'll just go do it.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by they can go buy the parts at Home Depot and put one of these things together.
Yeah.
That was all I was trying to say. People always want to get their fingers in the things, and then they play with it for a little bit, and then they, most of the people on the internet, 99% curiosity, And yes, no, my whole idea was to sit there and just get funded from the pullout, and then go ahead and take these things on a big scale. It's like, I mean, my shop and everything like that. There's only been one person that's ever been here in their life, and what's really weird is that I know a lot of key people around the country that most people don't even know. I mean, it's like this whole, like a lot of people about Tesla and everything. I've done all of Tesla's original works. I've built a lot of his original equipment and everything, and I've transmitted the power in the earth, everything like that. Lit light bulbs, run motors, and most people, they didn't. Nobody ever. What amazes me is that nobody's really ever built Tesla's original, system in Colorado. But then 99% of most people wouldn't even understand really how it works.
Yeah, well, that was fairly complicated.
Huh?
Wasn't it fairly complicated?
No, it's actually very simple. See, it would be simple if I showed you how to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, like Eric Dollard, he knows it intellectually, and he's done some little bit experiments in way back in the 80s, and then he disappears, and then all of a sudden somebody finds him and wakes up, like he woke up from the grave or something like that, And now everybody's going to be reading this 4-quadrant, this and this and that, and at the end of the day, that'll be nice reading. And I think by the time December comes rolling around and the books have all been bought and everything like that, people are going to wonder, like, okay, now, what do we do with all this? Because most people aren't gifted at building, and most people, it's very hard, so the only way they can really participate or understand is through reading some books or being able to, do a little bit of hands-on. A lot of people that are 8 feet long. It's one of the ones I used to run the shop on. It's hooked up to a 10,000-watt generator. So, that all being said, the whole idea is that for investors, getting back to the pullout, that was supposed to be bootstrap my leg up. And the reason why I did the whole pullout is because when I wanted to get funded for the turbine system way back in the 80s and everything, the grant stuff, the write-ups, the science stuff, all that stuff, you really couldn't get it done. You couldn't get money for it. So then I said, okay, then I'm going to invent something that's basically cool. And I have 14 patents worldwide on it. Registered trademark, everything. I've gone to shows, I've been on TV, everything like that. And if you go to the websites and everything and cruise around for about 2 hours, you'll understand what I've done with it. And so it's ready to go. It's made by it would be made by the biggest blow molding company in the world. They would send it down to 12 distributorships, blow molding company. You've seen, you see the slides and play parks and everything like that. It's that hard, rigid plastic is what it is. There are 4 types of plastic. There's injection molding, vacuum forming, rotational molding, and then blow molding. Mm-hmm. And it's the largest in the world, basically.
Okay.
And they make a lot of stuff for Mercedes and a whole bunch of stuff. And I spent a year and a half doing the engineering work from making it in the plastic mold in a program called SolidWorks. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I know SolidWorks.
Yeah. So I did a year and a half of all that engineering, put it in there, and then it's ready to go. And basically I just make a phone call, and $300,000 actually starts the ball rolling, because they just go ahead and they start making and cutting the molds, and then the molds are made out of aluminum, and basically I think there are 12 molds that make this whole thing. And then after that, then they want like $300,000, $400,000 on the visual check, and they want the remaining money when you sign off on it. And then they can have, in less than, basically about 2 weeks' time, They can have 14,000 units ready to go sitting on railroad cars in about 2 weeks' time. They make a unit every 2 minutes, and they would box it up, palletize it, everything like that within less than, I think, about 12 minutes, they said. And I've seen the plant and everything like that. So that was the whole point of making that and getting the finances to then go ahead and release the turbine things, because the turbines can be made out of metal, but I prefer to make them out of blow molded plastic. And then when I make them out of blow molded plastic, then the whole thing is just, you can ship them out the door, or go get an off-shelf generator, hook it up to it. And that's one project. And then the other big thing is...
now the turbines, maybe I misunderstood you, but there needs to be some kind of a prime mover to drive that, whether it's a stream or river or wind. Do you have it in a configuration that once it starts up, it's self-powering?
Yes. That's the pressurized tank version. You can use this thing in 3 different modes. You can use it in an open mode where you can literally have basically water running through the turbine, and then just go ahead and have a generator off of that. Or you can actually have it in a tank and have it pressurized to assist you for more load, for if you want to get more load out of it, but you have a small stream. You don't have the head pressure that goes off of the stream, but you want to add some more power to it. Then you can have that tank, so you add a certain amount of pressure into the tank, and then after that, that gets it up even more speed, which then you can load it down with your generator, and then you can close, lock it into a quote. And I don't want to say I hate the word closed loop system, because when you say the word closed loop system, I mean nothing's like a closed loop system, but in a weird way, the universe is in sort of